Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Thank you for joining today's news conference. Bienvenue à cette conférence de presse. We will start out today with remarks from the chair of the Fréchette. We will then take questions from the media. It is my pleasure now to introduce the Premier of Prince Edward Island, Rob Lance.
Thank you, Andrew, and good afternoon, everyone. Over the past 2 days, Canada's premiers had productive discussions on a number of issues that matter most to Canadians. We met at a time when Canadians are looking to their governments for leadership. And as the recent announcement of new U.S. tariffs has shown, we're living in a time when uncertainty is the new norm. Decisions made beyond our borders have real impacts on Canadian workers, businesses, and families. The cost of living is rising in every Canadian home. Businesses are looking for certainty. Communities want to know that governments can work together to strengthen our economy, improve healthcare, and build a secure future. Canadians expect their governments to steer them safely through this difficult time. They want governments to work together, make decisions, and deliver results on the issues that matter most to them. I'm pleased to say we achieved that goal today. Throughout our discussions, one message remained clear: premiers support a strong and united Canada. While each province and territory has its own priorities, we've demonstrated that we have far more in common than what divided us. Premiers had an open, constructive conversation about strengthening Canada's economy, improving internal trade, building critical infrastructure, enhancing public safety, and ensuring Canadians continue to have access to the services that they rely on. Leadership means bringing people together around shared priorities. It means rolling up your sleeves, getting down to work. That's exactly what we've done over the past 2 days. And I was honored to serve as chair of this important work. Growing Canada's economy and making life more affordable go hand in hand. That's why we discussed how we can remove barriers to trade, support major projects, and create the conditions for businesses to invest, grow, and create jobs. Affordability means whether families can afford everyday necessities, whether businesses can expand, and whether young people see opportunities to build their future here. Canadians expect progress, and that's what premiers have focused on. Energy security has become one of Canada's most important priorities. Canadians expect an electricity system that's reliable, resilient, and prepared for the future. Prince Edward Island, for us, we need a commitment for new subsea transmission cables. This is a major project that will deliver energy security Islanders want and deserve. Healthcare remains a top priority across the country. We heard that loud and clear. Premiers discussed the need to continue recruiting health professionals, improving access to care, and ensuring provinces and territories have the financial resources they need to meet growing demand. Strong federal-provincial partnerships matter. Predictable, long-term funding gives provinces the certainty to plan, invest, and continue improving care for the people that we serve. Serving as the chair of the Council of the Federation has been a real privilege for me. But throughout this week, I was also here as the Premier of Prince Edward Island, and my responsibility has been to make sure that Islanders' priorities were part of this national conversation. I advocated for stronger health care. I advocated for greater energy security. I advocated for economic growth that creates opportunities for Islanders and strengthens communities across our province. And I continue to make the case that national policies and federal investments must recognize the realities of smaller provinces. Hosting the Council of the Federation wasn't simply about welcoming my colleagues to Prince Edward Island. It was about ensuring Islanders had a strong voice around the table as important national conversations took place here. And I believe we achieved that goal. And we got some very important work done here. Tomorrow, premiers will meet with the Prime Minister here. The discussions we had today were about strengthening every province to make Canada stronger. We have a shared commitment to strengthen Canada's economy, improving affordability, and delivering results for Canadians. But there's no doubt our conversation with the Prime Minister tomorrow will have a new level of urgency. We're looking forward to sharing our priorities tomorrow and working with the Prime Minister to ensure Canadians see a strong, united approach as we focus on protecting workers, farmers, fishers, businesses, and all Canadians. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. Je donne maintenant la parole à la Première ministre du Québec, Madame Christine Fréchette.
Oui, merci. Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour à tous. Alors, c'est un privilège vraiment pour moi d'être parmi mes homologues aujourd'hui dans la belle ville de Charlottetown. Et je tiens à remercier le Premier ministre Lanz pour son accueil et pour son rôle également à titre de président du Conseil de la Fédération, un rôle qu'il a assumé avec brio. On a eu entre Premier ministre des provinces et des territoires des discussions particulièrement importantes dans un contexte où l'incertitude puis l'instabilité sont devenues monnaie courante, sont devenues en quelque sorte la nouvelle norme. Les décisions, en fait, qui sont prises même au-delà de nos frontières, et on peut penser aux États-Unis, en Iran, en Ukraine, elles ont des répercussions tangibles jusqu'à chez nous, des répercussions qui sont ressenties à la fois par nos concitoyens, les travailleurs, les entreprises et les familles. Et on le voit avec les négociations aussi avec les États-Unis, ça a des impacts directs sur l'ensemble des provinces, des États fédérés, du territoire, et donc il faut agir. Nos entreprises naviguent dans un environnement particulièrement incertain, où on a le rôle de leur offrir une prévisibilité. S'il y a un rôle qu'on peut chercher à incarner, chacun de nous, c'est bien celui d'offrir de la prévisibilité. Et on souhaite aussi appuyer les familles, puisqu'elles doivent faire face à une augmentation du coût de la vie assez importante, et ce depuis quelques années. Et c'est dans des moments comme ceux-là où on se dit que des réunions comme celles-là sont d'autant plus nécessaires. Parce que les Canadiens s'attendent à ce que nous collaborions les uns avec les autres, que nous joignions nos efforts et également qu'on assure la sécurité puis leur prospérité. Prospérité de nos économies, puis également d'offrir du travail également dans des secteurs d'avenir. Aujourd'hui, nos discussions, elles étaient tournées vers les Canadiens puis les Canadiennes, les Québécois, les Québécoises et la façon dont nous avons convenu d'additionner nos forces pour assurer que nous maintenons et faisons davantage prospérer un environnement dans lequel ils vont pouvoir s'épanouir. Même si chaque province et chaque territoire a ses propres priorités puis ses propres intérêts, je pense qu'on a démontré qu'on peut se concentrer sur ce qui nous rassemble. Les premiers ministres, en fait, on a tenu des discussions constructives sur le renforcement de l'économie, également l'amélioration du commerce intérieur, l'importance d'investir dans les infrastructures et surtout aussi de maintenir un accès facilité aux différents services gouvernementaux. On a aussi eu des discussions sur l'énergie, la sécurité énergétique particulièrement, et sur le fait de la fiabilité de nos réseaux électriques, comme quoi c'est une priorité, tout comme l'accès d'ailleurs à une électricité abondante et abordable. Évidemment, les soins de santé ont occupé aussi une partie de nos discussions, les soins de santé qui sont une priorité, particulièrement en fait pour chacun de nous tous. C'est d'ailleurs un des points que nous ferons valoir demain lors de la rencontre avec le Premier ministre Carney. Dans les 2 prochaines années, on demande à ce que le financement fédéral soit rehaussé, à ce que le financement de la santé soit prévisible et à long terme. En fait, on veut avoir de la certitude nécessaire pour bien planifier, investir et continuer d'améliorer les soins de santé pour la population. Comme vous le savez aussi, on a discuté brièvement avec le Premier ministre Carney hier et on le rencontrera demain à nouveau. Donc, on partage avec le Premier ministre fédéral l'ambition de demeurer résilient et l'ambition de renforcer nos économies. Évidemment, ces discussions-là s'inscrivent dans un contexte de nouvelles menaces tarifaires et ces discussions-là seront par conséquent d'autant plus importantes. Les États fédérés, les provinces, les territoires ont un rôle important à jouer sur ce front-là et on demande au gouvernement fédéral de nous impliquer de façon systématique, de façon proactive dans les négociations commerciales internationales particulièrement quant à celles qui touchent nos champs de compétences. Alors j'ai hâte de travailler, de présenter nos priorités demain et de travailler avec le Premier ministre Carney pour que nos citoyens constatent qu'on a une approche forte, une approche coordonnée, unie, renforcée, alors que dans le cadre des négociations de la CUSMA, alors qu'on met tout en œuvre pour protéger les travailleurs, protéger les entreprises, protéger nos agriculteurs, protéger nos économies. Merci.
Merci, Madame la Première Ministre. We will now move to media questions. For those wishing to ask a question, please come to the microphone, state your name, the outlet you represent, and direct your question to one Premier. You will be limited to one question only.
Kate McKenna, CBC News. Good afternoon, Premiers. My question is for Premier Moe. Today, U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said he's expecting that these CUSMA trade talks will go into 2027. Several premiers indicated that they thought that a trade deal could be reached in the next 28 or so days. I'm wondering if Mr. Greer's comments change your mind on that, or if you think that that's still something that could be worked towards.
No, I think I am, first of all, I would say I'm positive and bullish that we would be able to find an agreement in the near term, in particular given what is now, I think, 10 rounds of tariffs that have been indicated by the President of the United States of America. Some of those he has acted on with real impacts to, I think, in fairness, each and every province up here, including Saskatchewan. Some of those he has backed away from as well. We have about 27, 28 days left, I think, on this most recent announcement, which was his 10th announcement. And as I said yesterday, this is an opportunity for us as Canadians and our bargaining team or our negotiating team, Ambassador Wiseman, Janet Charette, and led by Dominic LeBlanc and ultimately our Prime Minister, to really intensify those negotiations in the effort to find some type of a reviewed and renewed CUSMA, which is not only good for Canadian families and Canadian businesses, it is also, I would say, very, very positive for American families and American businesses. The cost of living that we're feeling on the north side of the 49th parallel in our respective provinces, the cost of doing business that businesses across Canada are experiencing is also happening in the United States of America. And so it's in everyone's best interest in North America, the entirety of North America, for us to come to agreement in a reviewed and renewed CUSMA. I am bullish that we will be able to find that in the near term. However, I'm not entirely confident that we will. And so all we can do is to make every effort, myself as a subnational leader, to support our federal government and support those that are sitting at that bargaining table with information from our respective jurisdiction, and each leader up here, each provincial and territorial leader will be doing the same, so that we can support that negotiating team in coming to that agreement as soon as possible. It's good for Canadian families, it's good for American families, and I would put forward that the competitive threats that we see in the world, the uncertainty that we see globally, are not one another. They are other countries around the world, and it would do us very well to renew what is the strongest trade agreement in the Western world, get back to doing what we do best, which is, yes, an integrated economy across the 49th parallel, but I would say a highly economic business environment as well for all of North America. So Canadians, yes, are looking for that agreement. Saskatchewan businesses are looking for that certainty. Saskatchewan families are looking for that certainty. But I would say equally that American families and American businesses need that certainty as well. So I'm bullish, but I'm not entirely confident we'll get there.
And just to follow up for Premier Ford, Jamieson Greer also said that when he spoke with his Canadian counterpart, Dominic LeBlanc did not bring up retaliation. Do you think that this is the right approach?
Well, I'm looking forward to sitting down with the rest of the premiers and the Prime Minister. He needs to lead the way. He needs to come up with a strong plan over the next 29 days, and I'm interested in sitting down with him and hearing the plan. And I'll just speak for Ontario, everything's on the table. We can't keep rolling over for Donald Trump. So that's what I believe in, standing up strong. You negotiate through strength, you don't negotiate through weakness, especially with President Trump.
So
On that note, Premier Ford, Rachel Aiello, CTV News, you've spoken about standing up to a bully south of the border. How do you feel about this new Gordie Howe Bridge agreement, which will see Canada have to share revenues sooner than the original deal? Did Canada fail to stand up to the bully this time?
No, what I'm interested in is making sure goods get from US to Canada and Canada to the US. It's more goods travel across the Ambassador Bridge than anywhere else in the entire country. Over $1 billion of goods two-way go back and forth. So we need to make sure Gordie Howe Bridge is open. I don't believe in one bridge having monopoly, which I've had for years. But the good news is we're opening the bridge.
Alberta and Quebec's premiers. Have your fellow premiers during your meetings this week expressed any concern with you about how rising separatist sentiments in your respective provinces could compromise the push towards national unity?
No, I didn't hear any comments on that topic.
Premier Smith?
Yeah, no, it didn't come up.
Bonjour, Olivier Ferron-Boissy de TVA. Première question pour Madame Fréchette. Est-ce que, sur les propos de Jamieson Greer, est-ce que des négociations qui s'étireraient jusqu'en 2027, c'est acceptable pour le Québec?
Écoutez, notre souhait, c'est qu'un cadre stable soit mis en place dès que possible. 2027, c'est dans quelques mois. Alors, s'il y a des négociations qui nous amènent au début de 2027, ce serait l'idéal.
Follow-up is for Premier Smith. On energy security, building on the agreement that you've reached with Ontario regarding a pipeline that would remain on our side of the border. I was wondering if you had or if you're planning on having talks with Quebec Premier about a potential connection that could bring Alberta's oil to the province and then perhaps to European markets.
Well, I know that I'm very excited about the proposal that the Premier Doug Ford initiated for the Northern Shield pipeline. Delighted to hear that Premier Canoe also expressed some support for that. And I would say we're going to first look at the feasibility of that. I think it's a 3,300 kilometer pipeline, and so there's a little bit more work that needs to be done on it. In the meantime, we'll be working on our West Coast pipeline as the priority. It's an established route going to southern British Columbia, and there's a lot of work to do to try to get that approved by the September 2027 deadline.
Bonjour, Sébastien Desrosiers de Radio-Canada. Ma question est pour Mme Fréchette. Mme Fréchette, vos homologues du Manitoba et du Nouveau-Brunswick se sont dit prêts à défendre le Canada en cas de référendum au Québec. Vous qui n'en voulez pas, est-ce que vous encouragez les premiers ministres des provinces à militer en faveur d'une unité canadienne auprès des Québécois? Est-ce que le contexte l'exige selon vous?
Moi, je vais travailler pour qu'il n'y ait pas de déclenchement de campagne référendaire. Alors, mes collègues n'auront pas à s'investir d'une quelconque manière.
Bravo!
Et sur Churchill Falls, vos adversaires pensent qu'une entente à ce point-ci serait illégitime. Qu'en pensez-vous? Est-ce que c'est légitime? Est-ce que les Québécois doivent se prononcer sur un contrat comme celui-là qui va lier la province à une autre pendant 50 ans?
Écoutez, je pense que la sécurité énergétique du Québec est primordiale, elle est cruciale. On a eu une première entente qui a été convenue en décembre 2025 et 2024, pardon. Et je pense que ça a été salué, franchement salué de la très grande majorité des gens qui ont commenté cette entente. Alors, ce serait bien vu que de détailler encore davantage cette entente avec le gouvernement de Terre-Neuve.
Hey Doug, you mentioned that all options are on the table regarding leverage with the U.S. Does that include Ontario cutting off electricity exports to the U.S. or bringing back a surcharge for electricity exports?
Everything's on the table.
Can you maybe elaborate on that? What would it take for you to do that? I know you said you don't speak for other premiers, but you've mentioned oil and potash. Are you hoping that the federal government leads a coordinated approach where every province puts something on the table to leverage against the U.S.?
Oh, that can only be done if the rest of the province, it's a Team Canada approach, and we're going to take the Prime Minister's lead, so I look forward to hearing what he has to say.
I think this is a really good point that the last two questions have highlighted, and one that New Brunswick would like to emphasize, because there is lots of opportunity for Canada when we work together, and New Brunswick sees that as the Maritimes hub, the energy hub that is connected to Quebec, to P.E.I, to Nova Scotia, and to the U.S. through transmission lines, who has the capacity through our nuclear leadership, through our hydroelectricity, to support our neighbors and to build partnerships like you just described, like we've seen between Newfoundland and Quebec. To work together to look at our generation assets, to look at our transmission assets, and deliver affordable, reliable, secure energy, not only to islanders who want it when it gets really cold and need to know that those subsea cables are there and their partners in New Brunswick have their backs, but in the interest of Canada, as we're connected to the US and we can leverage our assets for Canada's benefit and our position in the world. And so for us in New Brunswick, we want to see all of those connections, all of those regional partnerships that take our assets and energy and offer them up to strengthen Canada's economy. And then we can use that economic strength to make the kind of generational investments in healthcare that our government has been doing and that we need to see the federal government backing up, because our healthcare needs have been growing at a rate faster than our economy has been growing. We want to make sure that people can have access to the kind of healthcare that they deserve close to home. We need a growing economy to do that, which means we need energy security and the kind of assets that New Brunswick has, backed up by our neighbors and friends. Alors, pour nous autres, c'est vraiment important de faire un travail de partenariat entre les provinces, entre le Québec, l'île du Prince-Édouard, la Nouvelle-Écosse, et pour nous autres aussi les États-Unis, pour utiliser nos forces. Nous sommes un leader dans l'énergie nucléaire. Nous sommes un leader dans l'énergie hydroélectrique aussi, puis on a le plus grand projet de biomasse, une conversion de charbon à biomasse qu'il y a dans le Nord-Amérique. Et si on partage ces forces avec nos voisins pour une sécurité énergétique autour du Canada, on peut utiliser toutes nos forces pour un meilleur pays, plus fort quand on fait des négociations avec les États-Unis et plus capable de livrer les services de santé que tout le monde veut.
I'd like to weigh in on this one as well. We heard the news this week from the Americans about a direct attack again on forestry families in British Columbia, those that work with wood to make furniture, for example, to add value to our wood products. It's just inexplicable to me, because we had the American ambassador hold a mining roundtable, meeting with mining companies, looking at opportunities to invest in mines in Canada to secure the metals and minerals that the United States needs. It can't be that that is simultaneously the position of the US and that Canada agrees with that. We can't have a country on one hand attacking one group of families and workers while hoping to have access to the resources in Canada that the rest of the world wants. The United States needs to make up its mind, and I will say frankly, from British Columbia's perspective, that we support the Prime Minister making that case at the table. If you want a strong partner, if you want the friendship that's benefited North Americans for generations, then let's have that. And if you don't want that, we need to be looking to the rest of the world. The agreement we signed on alcohol to support our alcohol producers to have access to the full Canadian market, and the work that we're doing on trade diversification needs to accelerate. And we need to be frank with the Americans that they will not get the kind of access that they seek to what's in Canada if this is how the conduct's going to go. If the Prime Minister calls British Columbia and says he needs support with some big sticks to have conversations at the table, then we'll be there. And I am happy to stand with the Prime Minister in that kind of discussion, because this is just silly. And at the end of the day, the United States needs to decide what they want. Do they want a strong partner in Canada where we work together, or are they keen to go it alone? But there's not this middle road where you attack British Columbians on one hand, and the other hand you're digging up our metals and minerals and bringing them south of the border.
Well, this is to Premier Lance and perhaps anybody else who wants to take the question. There are close to 6 million Canadians without a family doctor. You're asking for a renewal of the 5% increases. I'm just wondering if you can point to any tangible improvements in primary care access to Canadians that have resulted from the increases in funding so far.
We certainly had a robust discussion about healthcare in this country and the need for the federal government to come to the table as a strong, stable, reliable partner, and that's able to fund universal healthcare. Universal access to healthcare across this entire country, and that's the bedrock principle. And Us being the jurisdiction that's responsible for delivering that is difficult if we don't have the resources to fund a universally accessible system. Now, we know there's challenges, but we had a robust discussion today about the role that we expect the federal government to play. We started off our day with the Canadian Federation of Nurses Unions, an excellent presentation about the role of healthcare in the Canadian economy, the role it plays in not only in bolstering the health of the entire nation, but the role it plays in the economy. It is fundamental to who we are as Canadians, and we have many challenges that need to be addressed, not least of all here in Prince Edward Island, access to primary care. We've got a shortage of, I believe, about 23,000 family physicians in this country, so we've got to concentrate on workforce recruitment and retention here in Prince Edward Island, just as every other province is trying to do. We're working on regional collaboration here in the maritime provinces, in our healthcare services that we deliver. We can't afford to offer every subspecialty of healthcare services here in a small jurisdiction, but we can cooperate, and we're making progress on cooperation in the region. So I can point to all kinds of things, all kinds of measures that we're taking to improve access to primary care, but that can only be done with a strong, stable partner in the federal government, and we had a robust conversation about that today and different options that we'll present to the Prime Minister tomorrow. But it's going to be an ongoing conversation. We need a long-term commitment. You know, there are federal agreements with all of the provinces which will expire in about, 18 months or less. You know, many of our provinces are looking at a fiscal cliff in terms of funding our healthcare systems. So look forward to that conversation tomorrow with the Prime Minister.
I might just add, the two measures we look at are the number of patients who are attached to a family doctor, and then we look at the number of doctors and nurse practitioners who are accepting new patients, and we've seen great progress on both of those. So 87% of our patients are now attached to a family doctor. We'd like it to be 100%. But we also signed a deal with nurse practitioners so they could open their own practices, take on a panel of 900 patients and bill us directly. We now have 100 nurse practitioners doing that in our province. And we developed a similar approach with family doctors. So family doctors also take on a panel. And so now, just at last I checked, we have over 1,000 doctors or nurse practitioners taking on new patients. And so I'm happy to share that learning with other premiers, but it does seem that team-based practice and the certainty of a panel arrangement has been one of the keys to successes in Alberta.
I'd like to chime in as well. When we took office in 2023, Manitoba was in 10th place amongst the provinces when it came to having access to a family doctor. And today, we're number one. And we've added about 300 physicians over not quite 3 years. And primary care includes a lot more than just the doctors. There's more doctors practicing in Manitoba today than there ever have been before. But you've also got the nurses, nurse practitioners, social workers, you got the OTs, PTs, so many people who can make up a primary care team. And having a consistent approach of investing, trying innovative new approaches, working with the service delivery organization so that there's work-life balance, that's great. But as we think about what is happening between our country and the threat of the Trump tariffs, to me, there can be no bigger nation-building project than building up this nation's people. And that has to include healthcare, universal public access to healthcare. And so for the federal government to see this as an investment, I think is a very, very important part of a comprehensive strategy to make our country strong and independent, and to ensure that, frankly, there's a good working relationship between us as the provinces and the federal government. But at the end of the day, this is not just about figures and percentages of funding arrangements and transfers. This is about people. And if we want to get misty-eyed and emotional about this country that we love so much, let's think about the seniors who built this country. It's their turn to be able to access health care, and we have to make sure that it's there for them, including family doctors, but also including every aspect of health care. So I think we had a very strong discussion, and Team Canada is not just united against threats to our economy outside of our borders. I'm very happy that this team is united about taking care of people inside our borders as well too.
Thank you, and if I could too, this is a really important question, so I appreciate the question. Healthy people drive healthy economies, so it's really important that we invest in healthcare. It's really important that we have a partner in the federal government who continues to do their part. So we're looking forward to, some discussions with the Prime Minister and his team about the continuation of the investments from the federal government. But they have willing partners here in the Premiers, and certainly in Nova Scotia we're doing our parts. There's more doctors in Nova Scotia today than there has ever been. There are more nurses today, there are more access points, and the stat we look at quite often is the unattached, the needed family practice list, we call that in Nova Scotia. At one point that was up to 15% of the population. 15% of the population nationally would still be pretty well respected, I think, amongst the province and territories. Today it's under 6, so I'll have a little dispute as to who's number one on that, but it would be we have the same goals on that, and we'll continue to do that. And we've done that with opening up access points. We opened up a new medical school in Nova Scotia. That's a really important thing for Nova Scotians, and I'm really proud of the process that the team put in place for credentialing foreign trained physicians. In 12 weeks or less, you can come to Nova Scotia and have your clinical evaluation, and if you meet the standards, you can be licensed. And if you don't, then you won't. But we can't jeopardize the standard of care. But the point of it all is that delivering these services for Nova Scotians and for Canadians, it costs money, and we need a partner in the federal government who's there and recognizes that and does their part. Because as I started, healthy people drive healthy economies. So thank you for the question.
If I could add a few comments to, I spent most of my career in healthcare, and to Premier from Manitoba's comments about staffing, 80% of the cost of our healthcare system is usually around people, between salaries and benefits. And when you think about healthcare and you break it down from the equipment to the buildings, it's really about people helping people. And that's exactly what Canada has been about, and that's what we're about, trying to make it easier for the people of Canada to access healthcare. But in order for that to happen, we have to make sure we support our healthcare workers. We got to make sure that we are continuously looking at models of care and whether we have the right staffing ratios, the right people doing the right job, and making sure health professionals are maxing out to their skill sets. And that's something we're all focused on here at this table. And that's what will help improve our healthcare access. We've taken steps in Newfoundland and Labrador. We have a huge geography with a small population. But right now in our last budget, we know we can't have a tertiary care center in every corner of our province. But if you have to travel for healthcare in our province, outside of your region, to see a specialist or to go to a tertiary care center, we're going to cover your transportation costs 100%. We're increasing the number of Skedevac flights out of our northern communities so Indigenous people and populations can have the same access to timely access to appointments and won't miss appointments or special appointments because the flight isn't there to take them out. So we're taking steps directly on improving that. We're also looking at a new model when it comes to nursing delivery. We've all had the experience of travel nurses and the significant costs to our systems of using that model. We're working with our nursing unions about how we change all of that. And like Alberta, we're also reaching out to make sure that nurse practitioners and others are part of that solution. So there's lots of work being done in all of our provinces, and we need our federal government as part of that so that all of us together can improve that healthcare access for everybody. Thanks so much.
I just wanted to jump in on the topic of healthcare. Coming from Nunavut, we have the highest per capita spend on healthcare. We have some of the most challenging outcomes. And as was mentioned earlier, it is all about people at the end of the day. It's about our children, it's about elders, it's about families. And from Nunavut's perspective, we're so thankful to all the incredible partners who help us take care of Nunavut residents. And I'd like to thank the Northwest Territories, thank Alberta, thank Manitoba as well as Ontario, who receive many of our patients who are accessing specialized care. We have a situation in Nunavut where we need more care closer to home. One of the biggest inputs to the healthcare system in Nunavut isn't necessarily pharmaceuticals, it's jet fuel. We are spending tens of millions of dollars each year to send patients halfway across the country in some cases to access specialized care. So we want to change that. We want to build care closer to home, and we need a strong partnership from the federal government that recognizes our increased spend. And so that's a message that I'll be sharing with the Prime Minister at the first opportunity.
Bill McGuire with the Island Farmer. I'm going to sneak in a quick question to Premier Lance. Yesterday we saw some general strokes from President Trump on the new tariff items he's going to be targeting in 20-some days or whatever. There was fish, there was other energy and so on, but for P.E.I. the key question is potatoes. Table potatoes, French fry potatoes. It has enormous impact on Alberta as well, Manitoba, New Brunswick. I mean, there's a lot of provinces that are heavily involved. Do you know if indeed potatoes are exempt? And if they're not exempt, well, what message are you going to say to, say, island producers on what might happen, say, in 28 days or so? And if the answer is that you know they are exempt, well, I guess the Premier's welcome to P.E.I. and have a good vacation.
Thanks, Bill. And we've done some preliminary analysis, and it looks like there's about $10 million worth of exports to the U.S. that would be exposed to these new tariffs. No indication that potatoes are involved in that. There would be a small segment of agricultural products. I think I can't be specific about right now, but about $2.5 million in agricultural products that might be exposed. So thankful for P.E.I. that potatoes don't seem to be implicated in these new tariffs. But look, I know that my fellow premiers here are probably far more exposed in other ways than we are. We've been very fortunate here in Prince Edward Island to this date to have had little exposure to some of these tariff measures, unlike some of my colleagues here. So we're thankful for that. We'll get more details to the agricultural community here in Prince Edward Island as we can, but initial analysis is that primarily potato industry is exempt.
Hi, Kat Tunney from CBC. I'll direct my question at Premier Smith, I guess, but happy to hear from anyone. Just wanting to cast ahead to tomorrow when you'll hear more from the Prime Minister face to face. What assurances are you looking for about his strategy over the next 28 days?
Well, I can tell you, much like Premier Lance, I think Alberta has not been as exposed to some of the tariffs. 97% of our goods cross the border tariff-free, and even with this latest round, it's about 1% of our overall product that is going to be impacted. And so our approach has been one to say that tariffs don't help anyone. Tariffs hurt Canadian consumers, they hurt American consumers, whether we apply them or they apply them. And although we're at 97% tariff-free, we'd like it to be 100%. And we'd like every other province to be at 100% tariff-free as well. So I think this is a window, this month that we have, or 28 days, to sharpen the pencils and sharpen the focus. And I hope that we can get all of the outstanding issues on the table, whether it's autos or steel, softwood, aluminum, and some of the new issues that have been put on the table, so that we can get to a comprehensive agreement. I remain as bullish and maybe hopefully more optimistic as Premier Moe that we can actually get a deal before the month is up. I hope it doesn't drag on into 2027. But I think that the Prime Minister has heard from us that we want to make sure that we get a good deal that is comprehensive and covers all of those outstanding issues. And I think that I hope that that's what he's working towards.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you very much. C'est tout le temps dont nous disposons d'aujourd'hui. Thank you for joining us. Merci de vous être joints à nous.